My son called me last month. Marcus, the oldest. He's in his 50s now, which still catches me sideways when I think about it. He called, and after a few minutes of the usual, how I was eating, was I sleeping, he said something that's been sitting with me ever since. He said, "Dad, I don't know who I am outside of work." And I didn't say anything for a moment because I recognized it. I recognized it the way you recognize a street you grew up on even after 40 years. The shape of it, the weight of it. I'd said those same words in my own way, just to myself, when I was about his age. Standing in a parking lot outside a job site, after a 12-hour shift, keys in my hand, not moving, not going home, not going anywhere, just standing, not knowing what I was moving toward. I'm Eugene. I'm 84 years old, and if I could go back to 60, there are 7 things I would cut, ruthlessly, without looking back. Not because someone told me to, because by the time you're my age, you can finally see the whole map. And some of the roads I took them for nothing. The first one, I would cut every relationship that was costing me more than it was worth. I kept people around for decades who didn't deserve the space. People I'd known since I was young, and I stayed connected out of habit, out of history, out of some idea that loyalty meant enduring. I confused familiarity with friendship. Those are not the same thing. There was a man I'd known since my early 20s. I won't name him. We worked the same crew for years. I helped him when he needed help. I vouched for him once, put my name on it, and when things went sideways, he let me carry it alone. Didn't say a word. Never acknowledged what that cost me. I didn't walk away. I just kept the distance and kept the relationship. Kept both somehow, which meant I kept the weight of it too. By the time I was in my 60s, I had contacts, plenty. People I'd nod to, people who'd ask how I was doing without wanting an answer. And I had maybe 4 people in the world I could call at 2 in the morning if something went wrong. 4. After 6 decades of living. I thought that was just how it was. I didn't realize until much later that I'd been investing in the wrong accounts for years, paying into connections that never compounded. Cut them. The people who take and disappear. The ones who are only there when it's comfortable. You don't have to be cruel about it. You don't have to make a speech. You just stop watering what doesn't grow. Second thing, the money I refused to spend while I still could. Lorraine used to say, "Eugene, what are we saving it for?" And I'd say, "Later. We'll use it later." Practical answer. Reasonable answer. Later is a lie we tell ourselves while the years move. I had a plan. I had targets. Numbers I wanted to hit before I felt like I could breathe. And by the time I hit them, my knees were talking to me in a language I didn't like. By the time I hit them, Lorraine was gone. I had what I'd saved, and I had a quiet apartment, and I had more time than I knew what to do with. I'm not saying spend recklessly. I'm not saying throw it away. I'm saying there was a trip we kept pushing back. Italy. She always wanted Italy. Something about the food, the light. She'd seen pictures. We never went. That trip is still sitting somewhere, undone, and it will never get done, and that's a weight I carry. Spend on experience while your body cooperates, while the person you want to share it with is still beside you. The money you leave behind will be divided. The memories you make will stay. The third thing I would cut is something that embarrasses me a little to admit, the food. I ate the way men of my generation ate. Whatever was there, however much was there, and I didn't give it much thought. You worked hard, you ate, that was the math. My mother cooked big meals, and we cleaned our plates, and that was a form of respect. By my 50s, I was carrying weight I didn't need. By my 60s, my doctor was talking numbers at me. Pressure, sugar, cholesterol. Like he was reading a breakdown report on a machine that was overdue for maintenance. Which, I suppose, he was. I remember the year Lorraine had surgery and I was alone for 3 weeks. I ate like a man who'd never learned what a vegetable was. Frozen things, bread, whatever didn't require thought. When she came home and looked at me, she didn't say anything. She just started cooking differently. Smaller portions, more color on the plate. She'd read something, or maybe she'd just noticed what was happening to me. I resisted it at first, because men like me didn't take direction about food without making it into something bigger than it was. But she was patient. She always was, in that particular way. The change was slow, but it came. And the thing I'll tell you is, when your body works better, everything else becomes easier. The walks got longer, the sleep got quieter, the mornings stopped feeling like a negotiation. I didn't understand how much I'd been dragging until some of the weight came off. Cut the bad food, not because of the numbers on a chart, because of the morning you want to have. Now here's where I'll admit something that might sound ridiculous. I once drove 45 minutes to a hardware store because I refused to accept that the one near my building was good enough. Came home with the exact same product. Lorraine watched me carry it in. She said absolutely nothing. She just looked at me with that particular expression she had, the one that meant, I have married a very specific kind of man. I still don't know what I was proving. Maybe nothing. Maybe just that I had an opinion about hardware stores. Fourth thing, and this one took me the longest to see. I would cut the talking, the explaining, the advising, the telling. By the time my children were adults, I had an opinion about everything they were doing. I'd earned that right in my mind. I'd lived longer. I'd made the mistakes first. Why wouldn't they want to know what I'd learned? Because nobody asked, Eugene. That's why. My youngest daughter, Naomi, she called me once, upset about something at work. A situation with her boss, something unfair. She was venting, just getting it out. And I listened for about 90 seconds before I started talking. Told her what she should do. Told her what I would have done. Broke the whole thing down like a problem to be solved. She got quiet. Then she said, Dad, I didn't call you for advice. I just wanted to talk. I didn't understand that for years. I thought talking was helping. I thought if I could fix the problem, that was the same as being there for her. It's not. The biggest thing I've learned in the last decade is that most people don't want to be fixed. They want to be heard. Really heard. Not processed, not assessed, just received. I got quieter in my 70s, not because I had less to say, because I finally started listening to what people were actually telling me. And what I found, sitting in that quiet, was that people came back more. My grandchildren started calling, not because I had wisdom to hand out, because I'd stopped handing it out uninvited, and suddenly being around me wasn't a test. Cut the advising. Make room for listening. You'll be amazed what fills that space. Fifth, the sitting. I retired and I sat. That's not an exaggeration. I sat the way a man sits when he's earned it. Mornings in the chair, afternoons in the same chair, news programs, sometimes just the window. I told myself rest was the reward, but the body doesn't understand retirement. The body only understands use. And what I didn't know, what nobody told me, is that when you stop using it, it doesn't just wait. It starts to go. My doctor told me, around age 72, that my muscle mass had dropped to a point where stairs were becoming a real risk. Not an inconvenience, a risk. I remember sitting in his office thinking, I worked with my hands my whole life. I was a man who moved. And now he's telling me stairs are a risk? That was a bad day. I started walking, simple as that. Not a plan, not a program, just walking. Down to the end of the block, then around the block, then farther. Some mornings I didn't want to go, and I went anyway, because sitting was the alternative, and I'd seen where sitting ended. I run into Daniel downstairs sometimes when I'm heading out. He's usually just getting back from a night shift, still in his jacket, looking like a man who hasn't slept but wouldn't admit it. We don't talk much, Daniel and I. He asked once where I was going so early. I told him, nowhere, just moving. He nodded like that made sense. Movement isn't about fitness at this age. It's about staying in the game long enough to see what comes next. Sixth thing, the health obsession. Now this sounds like it contradicts what I just said, but stay with me. I went through a period in my early 70s, after the health scare that reminded me I wasn't made of different material than other men, where I became consumed by the numbers. Blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol. I checked my readings so often I started to dread them. I started seeing every meal as a risk calculation. I went from a man who never thought about his health to a man who thought about almost nothing else. It didn't make me healthier, it made me anxious. And anxious living is not living. There is a version of taking care of yourself that is sane and gradual and honest. And there is a version that is just fear wearing the costume of discipline. I was in the second version. The question I finally started asking myself wasn't, are my numbers perfect? The question was, did I feel okay today? Did I walk? Did I eat something real? Did I sleep? If yes, that's enough. That's the deal you make with your body after a certain age. Not perfection, just cooperation. A man I know spent his last 2 healthy years measuring everything and enjoying nothing. He'd had a good life. He just didn't know it was good while it was happening. Don't let the monitoring become the cage. And the seventh thing, the one that took me longest, the one I'm still working on if I'm honest, comparison. I spent decades measuring my life against other men's lives. Not consciously, not always, but the habit was there. Watching who had what, who'd advanced, who'd bought what kind of house, what kind of car, whose son went where, whose daughter did what. There was a period in my 50s when I watched a colleague of mine, a man I'd started alongside, same year, same type of work, get moved into a role I'd wanted. I watched him get the credit for things I'd contributed to quietly, the way I always did things. And I swallowed it, said nothing, filed it under, that's how it goes. But I didn't let it go. I carried it around for years. I'd think about it when I had no reason to. I'd drag it out at 3 in the morning and look at it, like a man who keeps checking a bruise to see if it's healed. What I didn't understand, what took me embarrassingly long to understand, is that his life going one direction had absolutely nothing to do with mine. His path was not a comment on my path. The distance between where I was and where he was did not define the value of what I'd built. I built something real, a family, children who knew I was there even when I was hard to reach, a record of showing up. A life that, when I look at it from here, from 84, sitting by a window in a 1-bedroom apartment I keep tidy because that's what I know how to do, a life that from here has a shape, has weight, has meaning I couldn't see when I was inside it, nose down, comparing. Comparison steals the present. It reaches into whatever you have and tells you it's not enough. And it lies. It has always lied. The happiness I could have had at 55, if I'd only been able to look at what was actually in front of me instead of sideways at someone else's life, I won't get that back. I know that now, but I can stop doing it now. And I do, most days. I've lived long enough to know what the voice on the deathbed sounds like. Not my own, other people's. Men and women I watched age, who made space in their final years for honesty. The things they said at the end were not about money. They were not about status. They were almost always about time. How they spent it, who they spent it with, what they said, and what they held back. I don't know how much time I have left. My knees have strong opinions about that question, but I've made a kind of peace with the fact that I don't know. And that peace, strange as it sounds, feels better than the urgency did. What I know is this: you cannot add more hours to the day, but you can subtract what's taking up the ones you have. The people who drain you, the money you're terrified to touch, the food that's slowly dimming the lights, the sound of your own voice filling rooms that needed silence, the chair that's become a location and a life, the fear wrapped up in numbers on a chart, the habit of looking sideways to measure your worth. Cut them, not all at once, one at a time, like clearing a room. You don't need to see the whole apartment when you start. You just need to move the first thing out of the way. I'm still in this room, still here, moving a little slower than I'd like, but here, and that counts for something. If you've been sitting with me through this, I'm glad. These conversations are the ones I didn't have enough of when I was younger, and I find they matter more now than almost anything else. If something here landed somewhere in you, hold on to it. And if you'd like to come back and sit a while again, I'll be here.